Professor Allison, I heard that you visited Fukushima.
Yes.
And, how is your impression?
Well, the dominant impression I have, and of course it's 6 months ago now, so when you go there, what you see is abandoned fields and shops that are shut up and houses that are abandoned, and the story behind, the personal story behind those things is obviously very distressing at family and business and economic levels, and we were very lucky because we were shown around by school teachers, and they took us to the public hospital in Minami-Soma, and so we spoke to the doctor there, and he was telling us about the kinds of stress and the problems of suicides and things that are happening, and the problems of keeping families together, and worries about food and children and evacuation and so on. And we met the mayor of Minami-Soma and the mayor of Itati, and although that conversation was all in Japanese, it was explained to me, and I was very impressed with the way he was trying to keep his community together. And I'm afraid it emphasized to me what I expected to find, which was that fear of radiation is the problem, not the radiation itself. And it is fear can be very deadly for a community and for the old people.
Administration is going to make them keep safe, but the people are hurt by the separation from home.
Yeah, that is much worse than any effect of radiation. But of course, it isn't really the administration's fault. It is the advice that's coming from the International Advisory Committee, the International Commission for Radiological Protection, whose international remit from the time of the Cold War was to reduce people's exposure to radiation as low as reasonably achievable, and ALARA, and that's the acronym and that says it all, that the levels are kept down very close to the natural levels that we get from radiation from space and from the rocks and so on. And that's not a safety level. So in my work, I have been trying to ask the question, what is a safety level? Not how low can you get, but how high can you get without having a serious risk? It's in some cases up to 1,000 times higher, perhaps. Exactly what the number should be can be argued about, but that is what I have tried to do. So if you had a safety level that much higher, then there would now not need to be anybody evacuated. I would like to see everybody be allowed to go home. They don't have to go home, but they should be encouraged to go home.
And saying quantitatively, the Japanese government is obeying ICRP standards, so they are setting 1 to 20 mid-seaworld per year.
Yes.
I think you were saying it's too low level for radiation standard.
Yeah, absurdly low. When I was writing my book, I thought, okay, if I'm saying that it's absurdly low, I should attempt to say what level it should be. And I have suggested that it should be 100 millisieverts per month, which is 1,200 millisieverts per year. So that's 1,000 times higher. But because of the ability to repair radiation damage, the argument is it's not just simply a factor of 1,000, and clearly there should be arguments and discussions as to exactly how a new set of radiation levels should be defined. But just for the sake of argument, I think 100 millisieverts per month would be sensible.
But maybe Japanese government officials will say that it is too high, so they should...
well, they can't afford to go against international recommendations. So I think one of the jobs I had to do is to get those international recommendations changed and lobby in the UK and wherever I can to get pressure, academic pressure on to get those levels changed. That's a big job.
Yeah, but in the academic world, but there is still few people who are saying that there is linear no threshold hypothesis. And how about your opinion?
Well, I tackled this problem directly in my book, but I think actually it's become a sort of an academic question of the number of angels that can dance on a point of a needle type of question. The really serious question is the clinical medicine of what happens to people who have certain levels of radiation, and the idea that the response to radiation is linear is certainly not true, because radiotherapy wouldn't work. It is only works because the dose is divided into a dose each day, and each day the body recovers much of the effect of that damage. If the LNT model were correct, then you get the same effect by giving all the radiation for radiotherapy all on one day, which would be much cheaper. It would also be fatal.
And in Japan, there is a big problem for to remove contamination. And one report by the Japanese government last week says they should remove the contaminated soils that above 5 millisievert per year. It would be huge amount of soil, maybe trillion yen, maybe 100 trillion yen, $1 trillion.
Well, I think, if I may say so, a little bit of common sense is very useful in dealing with problems of the effects of radiation on people and on society. And when one gets silly answers, maybe one's asked a silly question.
I can't understand the situation in Germany on why they are so nervous about nuclear.
Well, I think it comes back to the fact that we're not talking the nervousness is not scientific. It's all a matter of people's, of different nations' history in the nuclear thing. Now, it's not surprising that Japan has a particular sensitivity to the nuclear problem. I mean, instance like that fishing boat, the Fukurumaru fishing boat, and so on. There have been many, many incidents of nuclear problems in Japan, and not through any fault of anybody in Japan, just because it happens to have happened there. Of course, Germany is very well aware of having the front line of the East-West divide, straight down through the middle of it for many decades, and opinions are different in the East and the West, even today, I believe, and their politics and the way their politics worked is gridlocked on this issue, and I think that makes it very difficult. But I don't see that as a technical judgment. Of course, we need to be more efficient. We should use modern electronics to economize on the use of power, and I've heard very impressive figures of how Tokyo has lived in the last 6 months with reduced power supplies. But I hope, I really hope to hear that the nuclear power stations in Japan have all been turned on again, because I see no reason for their continuing to be closed down. Of course, you live in a geologically unstable region, but you've just had the most extraordinary demonstration of how stable almost all the other, well, in fact they were all stable against, all the nuclear reactors were stable against the geological, the geology of the earthquake. It was only the tsunami that found the weak point for the one particular power station. I think that's very, very impressive. And I do think that the way that the information, everybody's very critical about the information here, but if you look at how the information got out from Chernobyl, which was a complete disaster because the Soviet Union was on the edge of total breakdown, and tried to cover the whole thing up altogether,